Hey there, Vermont, all you American taxpayers out there. I've just posted a video discussing the small modular reactor option that Vermont voters should be presenting across all 14 counties to at least discuss bringing a sustainable electric power grid and profitability back to the state of Vermont into the 21st century and the 22nd century. I posted the two key articles, one from an environmental scientist who was very passionate about renewable energy, realizing several of the pitfalls that are not being discussed presently across the state of Vermont, across all 14 counties. And we have an opportunity on town meeting day to present this option across all 14 counties. It goes in depth on how the new small modular reactors and several other reactors actually, because there's been several advances since the Vermont Yankee days that a lot of Vermonters are not being introduced to, and I feel it should be an option on your town meeting day in order to discuss how Vermont can power its grid in a far more economic, sustainable way into the 21st century, addressing the climate change, carbon emissions, while bringing back Vermont profitability. And with the numbers that we're seeing as far as the number 50 GDP and the negative $200 million net worth, along with several of the pension issues, Global Foundries moving a semiconductor microchip division over to Germany. It's an option. And let's face it, there should be options, especially discussing the power grid, cybersecurity, several issues going forward into the 21st century that it seems the Vermont House, the Vermont Senate, the Lieutenant Governor, I think Governor Phil Scott will certainly give us a listen. I really don't think Patrick Leahy, and I know for a fact Bernie Sanders would not want to hear this approach, and Peter Welch is probably going to do everything he can to block it. It's a much more financially sustainable. The carbon taxes will go away. Actually, the carbon taxes won't even be needed, to be honest with you. The massive amount of environmental destruction across the Green Mountain ridgelines of Vermont would be drastically reduced, and the 30,000 acres of solar farms may not be necessary, but still, if they want to advance and improve those renewable energy resources, which they already know is unsustainable, unaffordable, and in the present environment in the state of Vermont, with companies leaving Vermont, an older generation, some of the newer industries needing massive amounts of electricity, sustainable electricity, in order to advance their business models into the 21st century and beyond. I think Vermonters deserve at least a listen to some of the advances in the nuclear energy 21st century reactors that are built with these renewable energy resources as contributors into the grid. And we certainly, the carbon taxes, that $500 million carbon tax scheme would go away. And I mean, I'm not going to put a definite timeline with as deep a hole as been dug by the last decade of decisions, but profitability would be restored a lot quicker back to the state of Vermont. We would be able to have successful business models again in the state of Vermont, good paying jobs, advancing a known, sustainable, far more efficient, far more effective, far more profitable, far more stable portfolio of energy resources that are powering the state of Vermont and could even power portions of New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and part of New York. And we could probably even, I don't even know, we might be able to sell some of that extra energy back to Canada. Bringing Vermont back to profitability rather than this crisis management mode that we're presently in. All the colleges that are no longer profitable, they no longer have the students, they're closing down. Global Foundries is going off to Germany, or at least a division is going off to Germany. So that means there's going to be, I don't know. There may be packages to bring Vermonters over to Germany. The families, the Vermonters that are here, that want to stay here, that want to raise their family. I still think there's going to be some major layoffs, especially to individuals that are not offering some of the cybersecurity issues, especially with the microchips, the semiconductors, the inability to secure encrypted communications. Their market share is shrinking rather rapidly, a lot faster than a lot of people thought. And Global Foundries would be another company, as a matter of fact, that would benefit from the sustainable, far more efficient, far more effective electric grid with a small modular reactor providing that sustainable energy, powering Vermont into the 21st century and well beyond, as a matter of fact, a lot less destructive of the environment. That is a known fact for the renewable energy industries, even some of the more creative. It requires a lot of power to run some of these companies. And when you're pushing carbon taxes, when you're pushing climate change timelines they're already falling behind, they're definitely not going to make. And it puts everybody into this crisis tax Ponzi scheme mode. And I apologize for using Ponzi scheme, but I just feel that when there's known failures that are not being shared to the Vermont public, and the American public for that matter, and they're still living off of old stereotypes that date back to the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, even the 90s, and they're unwilling to listen to small modular reactor technology, as well as there's a couple other options there that are far less costly, built for easier maintainability, as well as employing really good paying jobs, allowing businesses to actually not have to deal with all of the hatred towards fossil fuel industries, apparently, that is being pitched by a 100% renewable energy small sector of Vermont. Yes, apparently they employ 18,800 people. However, I'm still waiting for, I'm seeing with each project, there's certainly layoffs and they're going off into different industries. I'm a little bit tired of individuals labeling other individuals that, basically say they do not care about, Vermont's environment, let alone Vermont's profitability. There's a lot of seniors right now that are in panic mode because they know for a fact that there's massive underfunding in some of their pension funds. Hi there, Holly. HomeQuest, how are you? And this is an option that should be discussed this month, in the next 2 days. Any Vermonter that's going to your town meeting should bring up the Small Modular Reactor Option in order to sustain Vermont's electric grid, bring Vermont back from a very deep, deep debt, and even back to profitability again like it used to be, with a surplus, versus the panic, crisis mode, climate change apocalypse, fear-mongering that we tend to hear from several politicians that are just basically trying to push their political agenda, versus a common sense approach that brings Vermont back out of debt, on a path of profitability, providing good paying jobs so you can raise your family, you can enjoy the love of your life, guide your children to their dreams. And yeah, I know it kind of sounds like I'm trying to create some, this is a common sense approach. This is not a far left, socialist, pie in the sky, utopian dream. This is a financially sustainable, bringing back Vermont to profitability out of a deep, deep hole of some seriously bad decisions that were pretty much politically motivated and only benefiting certain politically aligned groups. I am an entrepreneur. I do love designing leading edge technology. I must admit, I like earning awards in those categories. Having done the work that I have at Fidelity Investments, being able to go to many presentations of many startup companies and basically testing these technologies, if they could be profitable and marketable and actually generate a positive revenue stream versus this never-ending taxation scheme that we keep hearing from a group that just really does not put together a financial approach, a balance sheet approach, how they're going to actually return profitability with some of these projects. The 100% renewable energy article, an environmentalist, passionate, out in California, finally brings out much of the, much of the known facts about 100% renewable energy being unstable. Financially, you have to update so many other surrounding energy sources. Whereas with this small modular reactor option, it's built for the 21st century, for renewable energies going forward. As these technologies advance, become efficient, better innovations, go to the No Carbon Tax Vermont group. We have a presentation at the State House on March 23rd, 2019 from 9 a.m. to noon. We're also discussing getting on one of the public access channels to at least bring back some common sense approaches going forward into the 21st century that'll actually, they're affordable. This carbon tax, anti-fossil fuel industry approach, basically banning natural gas companies. Fossil fuels are going to be needed going forward, and several of these renewable energies have already been proven unable to deliver the amount of power that is needed, on top of the fact the massive amounts of environment that have to be used when you're installing 200 miles worth of industrial wind turbines that require 1 acre apiece of a Green Mountain ridgeline, cutting all those trees, making all those roads, diverting all those water resources in the mountains, causing issues down in the valleys. And then we've got the massive amount of 30,000 acres of solar farms that eat up a lot of real estate. These small modular reactors are built for the 21st century, and maybe Vermont may not even have an option because it is on a federal scale. The Department of Energy has invested a lot of money in these energies. The mindset that nuclear energy equates to when you can use a Coke can worth of resource and power the kind of heat and and provide the kind of electricity that's sustainable for 20 to 30 years versus the 20 to 25 year warranty on some of the solar panels, which are laced with heavy metals, no recycling plan whatsoever. And then we're talking about, like I said, the amount of environment that you have to destroy for the industrial wind turbine farms. These reactors are proving a path, along with all of the advances in those other industries, sustainability, profitability, bringing Vermont back into the black probably a lot quicker than going so deep in debt, taxing people to the point where the state of Vermont is no longer affordable, and actually providing real jobs, good jobs, not the kind of, everybody wants to work. At least I know I want to work. I love designing leading edge technologies, and I want to build a business model that's successful. It's not set up for failure, and I'm not constantly dealing with a never-ending paper filing process that can just bury about any company eventually. And with Global Foundries moving its semiconductor and microchip plant or division off into Germany, that's another little red flag that we've heard it. We're kind of used to it because IBM would, whenever individuals were getting to a point or getting close to retirement, or if they were changing a technology stream or revenue stream, those individuals would either be laid off or they would have an opportunity to start looking for other positions in other industries. So that in mind, I would like to see Vermonters present this at their town meetings and see if it can become an option. We've got a presentation coming up at the State House March 23rd. We have a nice group of individuals that have put a lot of time and research into the cap and trade approach, the carbon taxes, the climate change initiatives, the costs. When you're talking about a $500 million tax scheme in a small state that is already in a deep hole, and you have businesses leaving the state because their profitability margins are so small, they're closing down. And yes, we're going into a whole new century of a digital economy that needs cybersecurity. We also need energy grid that's providing the kind of energy that these businesses can still generate a profit, employ people with good jobs and good benefits. And I just think Vermonters deserve to at least hear that option, not be cut out of the loop just because there's a small group of CEOs that is just pouring money into the Vermont House and the Vermont Senate in order to basically control the legislative agenda. And just imagine how could solve a lot of the fish and wildlife downsizing issues due to the fact that people would still be able to enjoy the great outdoors between hunting, camping, and fishing. I think it should be an option. So I've posted that video with the 2 links. There's plenty of information at your town meeting day. Put it up on the agenda, and let's really start with a common sense approach on how we can bring back Vermont to profitability versus this panic-stricken climate change apocalypse. This 12-year, if we don't do it their way, the world's going to end. And by the way, this solves, Vermont is the number 50 smallest carbon footprint state. This will bring Vermont to that 0 that renewable energy side, or let's just say that political side, is trying to push down everybody's throat in Vermont, when number 1, Texas, number 2, California, is realizing the renewable energy failures. They've got to plug it into a sustainable grid with these small modular reactors, something Vermonters are not hearing. So please bring it up during your town meeting days. Please come to our presentations, and we're actually hopefully going to start, we might even be putting together a panel of professionals that will be presenting this on a cable network show. We cannot purchase the time right now on WCAX, Channel 5, WPTZ. Many of the papers, some of the other media sources will not look at this until it starts to actually gain ground and attention. And I know when I can bring together a profitable plan without carbon taxes, without basically bringing what's remaining of Vermont's economic engine to a grinding stop, and rather provide a solution where it can bring us carbon emissions, whatever they feel is rising, back down to 0 for their goal, providing good jobs, sustainable energy, and bringing Vermont into the 21st century, and we can start designing some of the other awesome ideas to secure our communication networks, provide an encryption layer, and secure our financial networks so Vermont can actually go back to profitability. So please go to the Green Mountain Republicans Facebook page. You can check out the links. Watch that video. Please bring it up at your town meetings. We have future presentations with some solid professionals from several industries, and I think even they're going to start jumping on and listening to the fact that we can address this in a common sense approach across partisan lines. This is a nonpartisan group to begin with, and it's basically an option that should be out there, should be heard, rather than this, it's got to be carbon taxes and the climate change apocalypse 12-year timeline that they're already behind in so many, categories. This is a common sense approach with we'll have some good numbers, or at least some solid mathematical approaches, models that can actually be achievable versus this super aggressive, unsustainable tax scheme that is just going to drive companies out of Vermont And the affordability issues in the state of Vermont are already at crisis levels across all 14 counties, with the exception of maybe Chittenden. There's plenty of very wealthy individuals up in Chittenden County that are certainly buying enough Vermont House and Vermont Senate representatives to ignore a majority of Vermonters that are trying to address, live, exist in their home state. So please go to both of my Facebooks. You'll see the links, some numbers. Bring it up at your town meeting. Please attend our presentations and look for more of the future discussion groups, hopefully being aired on either a public access channel, and we hope to maybe even get some attention from some of the big players, WCAX, Channel 5, NBC. Anyways, have a great town meeting day, and please bring it up and have it put on the agenda. Have a great day.